The wealthy are getting tax hikes. Capital gains tax is going up, nearly doubling. That's how President Biden plans to pay for the second part of the infrastructure plan, known as the American Family Plan. Senate Republicans countering Biden's infrastructure plan with their own infrastructure plan on Thursday. It costs less than half of Biden's $2 trillion plan. The Biden administration facing another lawsuit. The Texas Attorney General claims the White House is flouting its own pandemic rules at the southern border while trying to handle the surge of illegal immigrants crossing over from Mexico. And a bipartisan bill aiming to increase capacity in migrant shelters and resolve asylum claims in a timely manner. It's led by Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn and Arizona Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. The wealthy are going to get hit with a massive tax hike. That's as Biden unveils his way to pay for the second part of the infrastructure package, nearly doubling the capital gains tax on the wealthy. Bloomberg says Biden will propose an increase in capital gains tax up to 43.4% for the wealthy. That's people making over $1 million a year. The hike is reportedly to pay for Biden's health care and family spending plan. Households making over $400,000 are also getting a tax hike from 37% to 39.6%. So what are all these tax hikes for? Biden says it's to pay for his $1 trillion American Family Plan, which will fund areas like childcare, paid family leave, and free community college tuition. Biden is expected to detail his plan next week during a joint session of Congress. As of now, it has not been finalized. Raising taxes on the wealthy was part of Biden's presidential campaign. Stocks took a plunge after the news, dropping the most in over a month. And as a quick refresher, the first part of the plan, such as bridges and broadband, will be paid for through corporate taxes. The second part, this family plan that includes paid leave and childcare, will be paid for through tax hikes on wealthy investors. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki did not address reporters' questions about the tax hikes during a Thursday briefing. She did note Biden believes the cost of the infrastructure plan can be shouldered by wealthy Americans and businesses. There's still pushback against the first part of the infrastructure plan. Senate Republicans unveiled their own infrastructure plan on Thursday. It costs less than half of Biden's $2 trillion plan. They called the over $500 billion plan a robust package and said it is the largest infrastructure plan Republicans can come up with. The plan includes traditional infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and waterways, but it also includes $65 billion to expand broadband and $60 billion for clean drinking water. But stripping the package of its green energy solutions won't sit well with Democrats. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says any infrastructure bill must include environmental measures. Senator Shalimar Capito is leading the Republicans' push for the smaller package. She told reporters this is the largest infrastructure investment that Republicans have come forward with, adding this is a robust package. She says she has spoken with the White House and Democratic lawmakers about their proposal and that they look forward to hearing a response. Speaking of legislation, let's turn to the border. Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn and Arizona Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema introduced legislation Thursday. It's to improve the government's response to the influx of migrants on the southern border. According to Axios, Sinema told reporters, "We know that this crisis at the border is not a Democratic or Republican problem. It's not a new problem. It's an American problem, and it's one that we've been dealing with in our border states for decades." The bipartisan bill is called the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act. It includes ways to increase capacity in migrant shelters and resolve asylum claims in a timely manner. Sinema says, "I have seen firsthand how Arizona and specifically small communities along the border pay the price for the federal government's failure to fix our broken immigration system." Adding she is proud to introduce bipartisan, bicameral legislation, ensuring the federal government takes meaningful steps to support our border communities, secure the border, and treat all migrants and unaccompanied children fairly and humanely. This comes on the heels of a joint letter from the two border state senators calling on President Joe Biden to use his full authority to address the crisis. Speaking of Texas and Arizona, both are calling on Biden to address the border crisis in other ways as well. Texas is suing Biden again. This time, the Attorney General is going after the White House for flouting its own pandemic rules at the southern border. The lawsuit says administration officials have abandoned the pre-existing protections against foreigners coming into the country who are infected with the virus. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says the disregard for virus rules during a pandemic violates federal law. He says in a statement, President Biden's outright disregard of the public health crisis in Texas by welcoming and encouraging mass gatherings of illegal aliens is hypocritical and dangerous. Adding this reckless policy change stifles the reopening of the Texas economy at a time when businesses need it the most and when our children need to get back to in-person learning as soon as possible. Law and order must be immediately upheld and enforced to ensure the safety of our communities and the reopening of the strongest economy of the country. Paxton alleges the government abandoned the rules without any meaningful justification or explanation. Under the Trump administration, the CDC issued an order that stopped migrants from entering the U.S. so the country could curb the spread of the virus. President Biden immediately rolled back the order when he took office. The lawsuit goes on to allege the Biden administration broke the law by failing to use Title 42 to return border crossers, which led to the massive surge at the U.S.-Mexico border. The lawsuit notes Customs and Border Patrol saw a roughly over 1,000% rise in family units between November 2020 and March 2021. But the use of Title 42 has fallen in that time. Paxton said earlier this year that illegal aliens cost Texas taxpayers an estimated $855 million each year. This is the seventh lawsuit coming out of Texas against Biden since he took office. And over in Arizona, two Democratic senators are calling on Biden to ramp up security personnel along the border. In the letter, Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly are also asking the White House to reimburse the state for the around 500 National Guard members Arizona deployed to better respond to the crisis. They start off with, there is a crisis at the southern border. From recent conversations with local community leaders, law enforcement, and local Department of Homeland Security officials, it is clear that their resources, staffing, and capabilities are strained. This comes on the heels of Arizona's Governor Doug Ducey issuing a declaration of emergency over the southern border. He also announced he is deploying the Arizona National Guard to the state's southern border to assist law enforcement dealing with a growing amount of illegal crossings. Ducey says the situation in our border communities is just as bad, if not worse, than the coverage we've been seeing. Adding, it's become evidently clear that Arizona needs the National Guard, and the White House is aware of that. Yet to this day, there has been no action from this administration, and it doesn't look like they are going to act anytime soon. If this administration isn't going to do anything, then we will. The number of illegal border crossings has gone up since Biden took office. In March, illegal border crossings was over 150,000 compared to 75,000 in January. The number of unaccompanied minors or children also went up, with March seeing nearly 19,000 compared to around 13,000 in January. The U.S. has struggled to contain them, opening more than a dozen new facilities and asking foster parents to take them in. And the battle over terminology continues. The White House walking back Biden's comments when he called the border situation a crisis over the weekend. Now Politico is the latest news outlet telling reporters not to use that term. The Washington Examiner obtained an internal political memo which instructed staff to shy away from the term crisis, saying that the current border situation doesn't fit the, quote, dictionary definition of a crisis. Staff were told it is a, quote, problem and dire situation instead. A Politico editor in March admitted an immigration crisis, but warned readers that it's not the one you think. The Politico memo went on to tell staff to avoid terms which could portray migrants as a negative, harmful influence. Such words like onslaught, tidal wave, flood, inundation, surge, invasion, army, march, sneak, and stealth. Washington Examiner noted Politico had no qualms using the term crisis when talking about the climate. Politico isn't the only one. Last month, the Associated Press told their reporters not to use the term crisis, also saying it doesn't fit the dictionary definition. AP Vice President and Editor-at-Large for Standards, writing at the time, the current event in the news, a sharp increase in the arrival of unaccompanied minors, is a problem for border officials, a political challenge for Biden, and a dire situation for many migrants who make the journey. But it does not fit the classic dictionary definition of a crisis, which is a turning point in the course of anything, decisive or crucial time, stage, or event, or a time off or a state of affairs involving great danger or trouble, often which threatens to result in unpleasant consequences, like an economic crisis. He goes on to say, therefore, we should avoid, or at the least be highly cautious about referring to the present situation as a crisis on our own, although we may quote others using that language. He tells reporters if they are to use the word crisis, they need to first ask of what and to whom. Many pointed out AP had no qualms calling it a border crisis under Trump in 2018 and 2019. So does the situation at the border fit the dictionary definition? Well, the word crisis, according to dictionary.com, means a condition of instability or danger, as in social, economic, political, or international affairs, leading to a decisive change. In the Cambridge English Dictionary, crisis is defined as a time of great disagreement, confusion, or suffering. So why the push and change of terminology? It is seen as part of a push under the current administration to overturn Trump-era policies. The White House also ordered the term illegal alien be changed earlier this week. Customs and border officials are to use non-citizen or migrant instead. Advocates say using the term illegal alien is dehumanizing, while critics point out undocumented doesn't properly convey that such individuals have, in fact, crossed the border and remain in the U.S. illegally. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and have a wonderful weekend.